Welcome to the Way Too Indiecast, the official podcast of way2indie.com. On today's podcast, episode number 8, we're going to talk about the 2015 Oscar nominations that were just released this morning. As always, there's plenty of surprises and snubs with the list of nominations, and we'll be discussing our reactions here today. I'm Dustin Jansick, editor-in-chief of Way Too Indie, and today I'm joined by contributor CJ Prince.
Hello, hello.
So let's jump right into our reactions on the 2015 Oscar nominations. We're going to assume that our listeners have already heard or seen the nominations. If you haven't yet, be sure to check out way2indie.com for the full list of nominations. We'll just jump right into our reactions. If you somehow didn't notice or avoided Twitter today, everyone's seemingly favorite animated film, The Lego Movie, did not get a nomination. That's probably the biggest surprise, snub, whatever you want to call it, on this list. This is a film that many consider to be a lock for the win of the Best Animated Feature category, but somehow it failed to even get a nomination. This was a huge letdown for me. Was it a big letdown for you as well, CJ?
Well, yeah, I mean, granted, I think I've only seen one other nominee in that category, which is The Tale of the Princess Kaguya. I can't really pronounce it, but yeah, I mean, it's a letdown because it was one of my favorite movies of last year, just in general. And it seemed like a no-brainer choice. It's a little surprising. I think, I don't know, it definitely does sting, but what takes the sting off a little bit is that, you know, you're getting films like The Tale of the Princess Kaguya nominated, as well as something like tiny, like Song of the Sea. So they seem to be turning it more towards smaller picks, which is I was surprised by it. And also, I mean, the Lego Movie has also made like so much money and it's so successful and stuff. So I mean, this is just kind of like an extra thing for it. So you know, the part of me that just loves the movie is really disappointed, but the part of me that also likes seeing these kind of other films get the spotlight put on them is also happy. So I'm a little torn.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I mean, up until today, honestly, I hadn't even heard of Song of the Sea before. I've at least heard of the other nominations in the category: Big Hero 6, The Box Trolls, How to Train Your Dragon 2, and then The Tale of the Princess Kaguya.
It's a good movie. I'll vouch for the movie.
I've heard great things about it. And I honestly have never even heard of Song of the Sea. I am with you though. Like, obviously our whole site is based on giving a shout out to the sort of the little guys, and that's kind of what it sort of seems here. And yeah, I guess maybe on the flip side though, I was really hoping that the big sort of mainstream film, the Lego Movie, would get a nomination. So I'm kind of with you. I guess I'm a little torn on that. What was interesting is it's not like they just forgot about the Lego Movie, because like it's one thing if like they just didn't get any nominations, right? Like, oh, you know, it was forgotten about completely. But it's almost a slap in the face because they actually got a nomination for Best Song, Everything is Awesome, which is also interesting because it did not even get a nomination for the Golden Globes, which just happened last week.
Yeah, it's a deserved nomination. I think it's if you've heard the song, and I don't want to sing it because one, I'm terrible at singing, but two, it's also
you will never forget it once you hear it. You won't forget it.
You won't forget it. It is an earworm, and it's just a really fun song that goes really well with the movie. So I think it's totally deserved. I was a little surprised that it didn't get any love from the Hollywood Foreign Press, but maybe it was because you know it's not, you know, a serious song like say Glory or Lord's song from Hunger Games or whatever.
Yeah, it's totally a fun song, but yeah, I don't know why that would take away. Maybe they need to have a fun song category, because you know they have the musical and comedy categories for the Golden Globes. Maybe they need to have a separate category for songs, I guess, non-serious songs. I don't know.
Yeah. And I was surprised to see that Beyond the Lights got nominated for Best Song, because that's a movie I know a lot of people have been championing heavily, and I actually really want to see it because there's so many people who have been vouching for it. So I mean, I know some people are really pleasantly surprised by that.
What about the Glenn Campbell All Be Me? What is that?
I don't know that movie. I was seeing it over. I was like, I don't like. I know, I'm bragging here. I know a lot of movies, but no, I actually don't know this movie.
Well, I don't either. That's shocking. That both of us have not heard of the film at all. I've never heard of it up until today. That's kind of weird.
Yeah. What I love is that the movie is called Glenn Campbell, I'll Be Me, and yet this song is written by Glenn Campbell and someone else, Julian Raymond. So
I'll be
it's
me
not
plus someone else.
Yeah, I'll be me with this other person.
So basically, the winners, I guess, if you want to call them, of the most nominations are Birdman and the Grand Budapest Hotel, each landing 9. Though pretty much the front runner in most people's minds at this point is Boyhood, which received a total of 6 nominations, but in very big categories: Best Picture, Best Director, Best Original Screenplay, and 2 supporting acting categories. Also interesting, though, is that also ties Whiplash, which I know you're a huge fan of, that got 6 nominations. That's a ton. That's a lot of nominations. You got to be happy about that.
Yeah, I'm very happy for. I know that people were very unsure about Whiplash. They weren't sure if it would even get in for Best Picture, and I thought, I thought no, because for me, I mean, I know that for those who are listening, there's been always this kind of, I don't want to say animosity, but you're not a fan of Whiplash.
Right. Yeah.
I think everyone else on the site is a fan of Whiplash.
No, it wasn't that I didn't like Whiplash at all. I thought it was a good film. It was a perfect candidate in my mind for an overlooked film, which we actually did a feature for on the site, the most overrated and underrated films of 2014. To me, that was the perfect overrated film. I thought that it got more attention than I think it deserves, but I don't think it was a bad movie.
But when you weren't, obviously you weren't over the moon. Yeah, you weren't championing it. Whereas
right.
I think like almost everyone else on the site. And it's funny because I remember I've been called the dissenter. Now you're in the hot seat. You know what it's like.
Yeah, I know what it's like.
Yeah, no, Whiplash is. I mean, I love Whiplash, and I was really happy to see that I got. I felt like it had. I was one who thought it was certainly going to get Best Picture because people who love this movie really love it. And I felt it would for sure be pushed to be a nominee. I knew it would have picture, editing, and supporting actor down, so I knew it would get at least 3 nominations.
Supporting actor, I mean, 100%, it's locked in. I mean, there was no question he would get a nomination, and there's almost no question that he should be the winner as well, J.K. Simmons for Whiplash.
Yeah. Other than Ethan Hawke in Boyhood, who's also fantastic.
And Edward Norton, I would argue that as well.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, he's good.
But those are so far behind. They had good performances, but Robert Duvall,
that's just, they had a slot to fill, and Robert Duvall is a respected actor.
I feel like I know. I feel like they could have fit that somewhere with someone else, in my opinion.
To me, I mean, if I want to talk about a weird category, I want to talk about the one that stuck out to me a lot, which is Best Performance by a Leading Actor, because that was one of the most competitive categories this year by far. And I found that the options were strange in a way. I don't know. I mean, it's just Michael Keaton's a lock and is, in my eyes, the front runner. Eddie Redmayne, I guess, is a close second. Benedict Cumberbatch is one that I think was a lock for a nomination. I mean, so it was those last 2 spots where things were kind of jumbling around. It could have been Steve Carell, it could have been Jake Gyllenhaal, David Oyelowo, and the Academy went with Steve Carell in Foxcatcher and Bradley Cooper in American Sniper, which I haven't seen American Sniper, so I can't say, but I just feel like it's been such an amazing year for leading actor performances, and yet to me Bradley Cooper has not really been a part of that, or people have not really been. I'm not saying that I can't say about the performance, but to me it's like when you think of all the performances people have been hyping up, Bradley Cooper does not come up in that conversation.
No,
so
totally.
I was really surprised to see him there, and I'm really shocked at the snubs for David Oyelowo for Selma, because he does an amazing job as Martin Luther King, and Jake Gyllenhaal Nightcrawler, which I just personally think is one of the best performances of the year.
Yeah, totally. I would agree with that. Bernard has a review of American Sniper on the site that you can check out, and I know that I was talking to him today and his opinion on it, and he said that he even loved Bradley Cooper in American Sniper, although he didn't like the film maybe a ton. He did like his performance, but he still agreed that, avidly agreed that David Oyelowo got a huge snub for not getting a nomination here. And I would totally agree that Jake Gyllenhaal should have had a nomination as well. I was really hoping that Nightcrawler would get a few more nods its way. It might be a little too dark, maybe. I was kind of fearing for the Academy, though it did pull off a screenplay nomination, which I'm really glad that at least it got something.
Yeah, I'm happy that it did get anything. I thought its only shot would have been Best Actor for Jake Gyllenhaal, so I'm happy. I'm very happy to see the screenplay, not because I think it is deserved.
Possibly Russo.
I don't know.
I mean, that's kind of like you said. It was a good year for acting. It's always tough when you have to limit it down to 5.
I think it was just a matter with Renee Russo. I think she should have been nominated? 100% yes, but I think that it was just, I don't think there was enough push for her in the film, which
let's
made
talk
me a
about
bit
that
disappointed.
category real quick then. So we'll jump in as Best Supporting Actress category, because that she'd be nominated for supporting, right?
Yeah, she was nominated for supporting. Yeah.
Okay.
Or she would have been. Sorry.
Right. So that category is actually really strong. I feel like personally, you have Patricia Arquette for Boyhood, who's undoubtedly the front runner there, and then a huge win I think for Laura Dern for Wild. I loved her in the film. Really deserving there. Keira Knightley for Imitation Game, Emma Stone for Birdman, and then Meryl Streep for Into the Woods. Now, again, check out Bernard's review of Into the Woods. He did the review for that. A lot of people are saying Meryl Streep did a pretty good job, but in a year with so many other maybe deserving candidates, maybe Russo being one of them. There's several others, I'm sure, but like Meryl Streep again. I mean, is she getting it just because of her name or what?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like to me, it's when you're nominating, say, Patricia Arquette or Laura Dern or Keira Knightley or Emma Stone, it's you're nominating them for the film. It's Patricia Arquette in Boyhood. You're not nominating Meryl Streep for Into the Woods. You're nominating Meryl Streep. Like that's to me is the difference. And I think it's a load of crap that she gets nominated every year. I mean, I might shock listeners, but I'm not a particularly big fan of Meryl Streep. I find that she picks a lot of very boring roles, as in roles that are not challenging or interesting. She is more about building an image of herself. Her movies, The Onion did this great article. It was a fake editorial by her that was basically her saying, I'm this great actress, but I've never been in a great movie. Which it pretty much sums it up.
And I kind of agree with you. Like I like to play devil's advocate though, because like when someone tells me how great she is, I like to say, oh well, geez, look at all the terrible films she's in that she gets nominated for. But at the same time, on the flip side, I mean, she can't help that she's nominated. I mean, what is she supposed to do?
I'm not saying that she's like a terrible actress. I thought that she was really good last year in August Osage County, but I mean, it's just, to me, I think it's really just a formality that she will show up in a movie and then she will get nominated by someone. If it's not the Oscars, it'll be the Hollywood Foreign Press. Like, it frustrates me because I always feel like it's not a genuine nomination. It's Meryl Streep. So
exactly.
Have to pick Meryl Streep.
So let's talk about the other sort of major snubs. So you had like the Lego Movie, which everyone was freaking out about, and rightfully so. The other major one was Selma, not getting, I guess, enough nominations. Now I haven't seen the film. You have. Talk about maybe why you thought, other than we mentioned David Oyelowo, who didn't get anything for actor. What else should I have gotten?
I believe Selma only got 2 nominations, right?
Did.
Best Original Song and Best Picture.
Yep.
Now that to me, it feels like an even bigger slap in the face when you have it nominated for Best Picture and yet it doesn't pick up a nomination any other category, like acting or not even in the text. You give it to Best Song. Right. To me, it just shows that it was more of just a move by voters to kind of be like, yeah, we're being inclusive and trying to throw it a bone, essentially. When, in all honesty, I would say that Selma, I was not in love with Selma. I think that it's pretty standard awards fare, but for what it is, it's far better than a lot of other films that are, competing in the Oscars.
Well, people are freaking out. I mean, yeah, if you went on Twitter, that was like the biggest shock, I guess.
It's because it represents the status quo. It just shows that the Oscars are really just going by the status quo. They're not allowing a film that has a new perspective or a new thing. I mean, Ava DuVernay, people were really hoping that she get nominated for Best Director. I was hoping she get nominated for Best Director just because I would love to see like an African American female director get nominated so you can actually have that precedent set.
But is that the only reason?
No, she does a fine job, and in all honesty, like if you're gonna nominate Bennett Miller, if you're gonna nominate Morton Tildum, like, over her, that's a load of shit. Like, I'm sorry.
I haven't heard too many people arguing the Bennett Miller one. From what I've gathered, I've heard that was all right, but the Morton for the Imitation Game, that was sort of like okay, that one could have been one where she would have fit in.
Well, put it this way, this is something I want to bring up because it's very weird to me.
Mm-hmm.
Why did Foxcatcher get nominated for Best Director but not Best Picture?
That's a good point. And almost hand in hand, history has shown that Best Picture and Director typically even go together. Now, in years recent, that has they've sort of broken that long historical. If you win Best Director, you almost always win Best Picture. I think the percentages are still very high. So often those two categories are linked together. So, I mean, you bring up a good point. Now, there's only 8 Best Picture nominations out of a possible 10, which is interesting, I think, as well. But it is very interesting that it would get a Best Director and then not for Best Picture, especially in a year where they had 2 more spots to fill if the voters voted on that.
Yeah, I forget the requirements, the whole system they do in choosing, but I think if a film gets it
amount.
If it crosses a certain threshold, like I think it's like if it gets 5% or something, it can get on the list. So I don't know if I can't say if it's really reflective of the year, like if it's just like, oh, it's not a great year, that's why there's only 8, or just, I don't know. I don't think it really says much. It is interesting that it's 8 because I think the last few years it's always been 10.
Yeah, I think I don't know how many years running, but definitely the last like 2 years, or maybe even 3, that it's been 10. They've maxed that out. In recent years. Yeah,
I was hoping like if it went to 10, like maybe like Nightcrawler or something would have snuck in there. Yeah. But like it's totally fine. I just found it strange that because usually if a film is nominated for Best Director, it's like a formality that just gets nominated for Best Picture, and yet Bennett Miller and Foxcatcher did not get the Best Picture nomination.
But then you have American Sniper, which got a Best Picture nomination. It also shocked some people. Were kind of surprised by that a little in some ways, although it is Clint Eastwood. But then he didn't get a nomination for Best Director. So I guess it kind of went both ways a little bit. Not all of the 5 for Best Director were even nominated for Best Picture. It kind of went the other way as well. I'm just glad that Unbroken didn't take over and just show up. It did win 3 nominations, but
it's funny because I had a feeling like a feeling like maybe Unbroken will get nominated because it's already made over $100 million at the box office. It's doing really well with people. And
that's crazy.
It turns out, that American Sniper is that movie. It hasn't come out wide yet. It's coming out this weekend wide, but apparently it's on track to make like over $50 million this weekend. Like wow. I didn't realize that people were so interested in seeing this movie. So
American Sniper? It's Clint Eastwood, Bradley Cooper. I think there's some big names behind it.
Yeah, I guess, and the fact that it got about 5 or 6 nominations, which is also surprising because it hasn't really popped up on the awards, a lot of award nominations yet. So definitely a late entry into the game. I guess now It's like the game is over now that the big nominations are out. But I
think Selma and American Sniper were 2 kind of sort of late bloomers this year that sort of made a run for the nominations award season, I should say, in general. How about a category like Best Foreign Films, though? I know that's a category that us as a site really champions. We love our foreign films. I think there was a lot of good films here. A little surprising, no Force Majeure. I don't know. Were there any other kind of maybe surprises for you at all? 2 Days, One Night. No.
Yeah, 2 Days, One Night is, but that's not really getting a lot of nominations anywhere. So I guess I've been used to it.
It did get a nomination for Best Actress, which is interesting. So like it wasn't like again it was like forgotten about.
Oh no, I mean I'm talking about just the foreign category in general. Like I know that like it hasn't really been. I noticed that like the Golden Globes didn't pick up a nomination, so I guess I felt like it was out of the race, which I found odd because it is a very good film. And Force Majeure not getting in is to me a little shocking. But for me, I haven't seen. Now I have to see Tangerines because I'm like, where did this movie come from? Yeah, I mean Ida get it, or Ida, I'm sorry, it's actually Ida. I know you and Bernard and then talked about it, and then on the Golden Globes they pronounced it as Ida, and I was like, Bernard was right. But nice. For listeners, go back to the last Indiecast and listen to that. So
go back and listen to me screw up.
I don't think anyone had a clue. I didn't know. I thought it was Ida.
Yeah,
but,
I always thought it was too.
Timbuktu is to me a surprise in that I've seen Timbuktu. It's a very admirable film to me. It's not a particularly one that I liked a lot, but it's admirable. So I was surprised to see it get in there because I thought that something more provocative like Force Majeure would get in over it. But I think the one that I think we should get to, because we both seen it and you love it. I like it. You love it.
I do.
Is Wild Tales, which I was wondering if it would have got in, and it did. So how do you feel about having Wild Tales in there?
Well, I think the best foreign language film category for the Oscars are a chance for it to like sort of spread its wings and champion some dark, weird films that I don't know, that the Academy isn't often in support of. I mean, really glad that Wild Tales got in. I love the film. It was awesome, and it's weird, and it's hard to watch at times, but for me it was a huge win. I was really skeptical that it would even get a nomination. For me, it was a big win.
Yeah, now I know people will probably freak out at me for making this point, but I'm not saying the two movies are identical, but it does remind me a little bit of when Dogtooth got nominated for Best Foreign Language Film, because Dogtooth was this very out there pick. Wild Tales is not nearly as offbeat or weird as Dogtooth.
Yeah, because I mean this is a Sony Pictures classic film.
Yeah, but this is but Wild Tales is definitely, when you think of foreign language film contenders, it's definitely an odd one out because it is such a
different film.
I'm sorry to be corny, but it is a wild movie.
It really is. No, I was going to mention Dogtooth. Yeah, it kind of reminded me of that. You would never think that it'd be Oscar nominated. It almost sticks out, like you said, like a sore thumb, just because it's so much different than the other ones. It's gruesome, it's violent, but it's a lot of fun. Like it has so much fun, and I'm just glad that it resonated with other people. I was happy to see it, and I was quite shocked, surprisingly shocked.
Yeah. Comes out in February, I believe.
Yeah.
So, also, just quickly, I was surprised to see Inherent Vice. I think it got 2 nominations for adapted screenplay and costume design, I believe.
Yeah. I saw that P.T. Anderson got one for the writing, which is awesome. Were you surprised it didn't get more, or you were just surprised that it got something?
No, I was surprised it got any. I got surprised it got any because I don't, have you seen it yet?
I haven't.
Okay, but it's like I said a while ago, and I kind of wrote it off because I was like, this is such a strange movie for the Academy to want to do it. So seeing the screenplay nod was really surprising to me. I'm not surprised about, say, like costume design. I think it was costume design. It's just it's a really good movie in terms of the technicals of the period piece. So
no, I agree. And kind of talking about some of those costume design, production design categories, I thought it was kind of interesting because kind of going back to the best foreign, Mr. Turner was absent from the best foreign films, but it did pick up best production design and best costume design, which it 100% deserves.
And best cinematography as well.
Oh yeah, and because it's a beautiful. I mean, it's about a painter, and it's as beautiful as a painting. I mean, that whole film.
I haven't seen this yet, but I feel like it needs to be mentioned. The cinematographer of Mr. Turner, his name is Dick Pope, and apparently the person who announced the nominees pronounced his name as Dick Poop. I have not seen this video. I'm actually really eager to see. I think once we're done taking this, I'm going to go look at it.
Yeah,
because I want to see this. It sounds hilarious. But I mean, Mr. Turner is. I'm happy it got nominations. I think it's a really solid movie. Best documentary, I know it's Citizen Four's To Lose because that movie's been racking up all the awards, but very disappointed that The Overnighters did not get nominated. I just recently wrote about it in a feature on the site about 20 films you may have missed in 2014. That was one of my picks. I think it's a really fantastic, just like shattering documentary. So please go watch The Overnighters if you can.
It's totally worth the watch. Yeah.
Finding Vivian Maier, I'm really annoyed that it got nominated because I don't find it a particularly good documentary. It's more of a puff piece, a promo piece. It's an interesting topic, and I think that transcends his kind of selfish, greedy motivations behind making the movie. But the last thing I think we have to mention, you said at the beginning, but Grand Budapest Hotel tied for the most nominations, which to me is absolutely shocking.
It's shocking, and I know you're probably not the best one to talk about it, only because I know you're not a big fan of Wes Anderson. But I think, if you look at the grand scheme of things, a lot of people were sort of upset, and I know that happens every year. Not everything you want will get in, but I don't know. I think people are sort of forgetting the fact that Wes Anderson's sort of this tourist, this guy who hasn't really been championed all that much. He's been nominated for Oscars before, but this is someone that we should be really happy about, the fact that he's getting this kind of recognition. But I know that you're not a big fan of him in general, so for you, this is probably not what you want to see.
It's I'll put it this way, because it's not that it sounds like you talking about Whiplash right now, but it's not that I don't like Wes Anderson. In fact, I enjoy all the films of his I've seen except for one. But I've enjoyed everything.
Which one?
I've seen Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Okay.
From him, but Grand Budapest Hotel I think is a fine movie. I think it's gorgeous. It's funny. It's inventive, but it's like a ceiling. It reaches a certain ceiling for me. It doesn't push past and become this amazing film that everyone else is praising. But I'm actually happy to see that it got all these nominations, because one is it has more ingenuity and flair and stuff than something more like The Imitation Game.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
So I'm happy for that reason that something is appealing and really working for people like that. And also I just like to see that Wes Anderson has kind of essentially made it now. He's become this big name. Like it's like Quentin Tarantino, how he eventually reached that point where like he's this big name, and now Wes Anderson is at that level.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's sort of also worth noting that these two films that got 9 nominations, the most nominations, Birdman and the Grand Budapest Hotel, are not really Oscar baity in terms of what you would normally think, unlike what you said. Imitation Game and American Sniper, I mean, Unbroken even for that matter, these are like very sort of a lot of people say connect the dot type films that are just very Oscar baity, and you could just see that the Academy loving it and giving it a lot of praise. Maybe something like Lincoln from years past or something like that. But I'm glad that the two films are kind of edgy.
Yeah, even more. Grand Budapest Hotel came out in February or March?
March, I believe.
And it's it's maintained that momentum since then. So that to me says. It says a lot about how well the movies work.
I think we're going to wrap it up for this edition of the Way Too Indiecast. Stick around. Coming up, we probably are going to do a piece on the Oscar predictions. I'm sure we'll go through our categories and our thoughts on who are going to win each category. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, please subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or drop us a line on our Twitter page. CJ, where can we find you on Twitter?
I am on Twitter at CJ_Prin. That's at CJ_PRIN. Also, a plug. Please check out my podcast on the site called The Swap, which is something, a little fun podcast I like to do every month. I'm hopefully having an episode coming up in the next few weeks, so please listen to that.
Awesome. And you can find me on Twitter at DJansick. That's DJANSICK. But until next time, see you later.
See ya.